We have gotten so many requests for this one. Coming up, the story behind the signature song by an iconic rock figure who was disenchanted by the rock and roll stars of the 50s he grew up with. Even Elvis repelled him, apparently. So in an effort to forge his own path and to be very unique, this artist learned to play an instrument not normally associated with rock, as his hallmark for distinction. And he played it on stage in a style that nobody could emulate. But later it cost him dearly when he had major health problems because of the way he played it. Truly one of the most interesting icons of the rock era. He started out scrubbing urinals and toilets, and he was later drenched in urine when he played a live show on a commercial aircraft dumped waste from up in the sky. We break down his prog rock classic spawned from a fear of the future world. It was the lead single from an album with a cover image that scared the living hell out of me when I was a kid. It's all coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember back in the day when we only had 3 TV channels and you had to turn the knob to get from channel to channel, you're gonna dig this network of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now. Click the bell so you always know when our stuff's coming up. Also, check us out on Patreon for even more content. So growing up, I only knew of 2 Jethros, right? There was that lovable dimwit Jethro Bodine on the Beverly Hillbillies, played by Max Baer Jr.
Let's just say I'm double knot 10. Puts me a knot up on 07.
And the other Jethro that I knew something about was this strange band with disturbing album covers named Jethro Tull. The cover art that really freaked me out as a kid, but I later marveled at, was the one that graced the front of Jethro Tull's LP Aqualung, featuring the progressive rock classic Locomotive Breath. Locomotive Breath. The rock era has been dominated by the guitar. But in the subgenre of progressive rock, there are a handful of bands that have used the flute as a prominent part of their sound, right? Some of the most notable bands are the Moody Blues with Ray Thomas, there's Traffic with Chris Wood, Genesis during the Peter Gabriel era, and Focus from Amsterdam that had a #9 hit on the Billboard Hot 173 with their raging instrumental rondo Hocus Pocus, featuring a frenetic flute solo by band co-founder Thijs van Leer. But the band that is really synonymous with the flute, of course, as a focal point of their music has to be Jethro Tull, with his dynamic frontman and founder Ian Anderson. Now, Ian grew up in the 50s, and unlike most budding musicians that grew up during that time, he was not influenced to pursue a career in music by the King Elvis Presley. Presley actually influenced Ian in the exact opposite way. Ian knew as a teenager that he didn't want to emulate any of the rock stars. He wanted to forge his own path, creating something really unique. The desire to be different is what led him to the flute. Ian started off playing the guitar, but he eventually decided there were too many guitarists in the music world in rock. He never really regarded himself as being a good guitar player anyway, and he was also self-deprecating about his singing voice. He became enchanted by the shiny Aerophone when he saw one in a window display of a music store as he was passing by. Ian thought the glistening flute in the display was really pretty, is what he would say. Ian's initial attraction to the flute led him to a full exploration of what it could do for his career. As far as Ian was aware, no one played the flute in rock music, so he set a goal to be the best flautist around. I know it's flautist, but I'm gonna say flutist. Ian acquired a flute in 1967 by, get this, trading in his Fender Stratocaster guitar. Now, it was a cheap Selmer gold seal flute, coincidentally the same model that renowned flautist James Galway owned as his first flute, even though it was reported that Galway hated his gold seal. Ian stuck with that same flute until it was either damaged or stolen in about 1969. When Ian first purchased the flute, he had no clue how to play it. There were no instructions or finger charts included with it. However, thanks to the intuitive design of the modern concert flute, Ian figured out the finger placements through trial and error. It took him until about August of '67 to finally get the hang of it. So Ian began assembling the group that became Jethro Tull in 1967. This was after trying several other band names like Navy Blue, Candy Colored Rain, and Ian Anderson's Baganelles. Surprised that one didn't stick. A history buff who was a member of the band's booking agency gave the band the alias Jethro Tull after the 18th century agriculturist of the same name. The name Jethro Tull became permanent when the manager of London's legendary Marquee Club offered them a weekly residency after digging their show from another performance. In a 2006 interview, Ian Anderson shared that he hadn't realized Jethro Tull was the name of a dead guy who invented the seed drill. He thought that the agent simply made the name up out of nowhere. Interestingly, Ian elaborated that if he could change one thing in his life, he would go back and rename the band to something else, something less historical. Well, even with the residency, though, the band wasn't making much money. In late 1967, Ian was still working a day job cleaning the Ritz Cinema in Luton, which included the glamorous task of cleaning toilets and urinals in the mornings. As a memento of his literally crappy job, he swiped an old chipped urinal from the cinema storeroom, and he kept it for several years after leaving the job. Now, I should point out, however, it wasn't the urinal that was bolted to the side of John Evans' Hammond organ on stage that was featured as a stage prop in Tull performances of the early 70s. That was a different piece. Now, this is a gross part of the story, but for some bizarre reason, urine seemed to lurk around Ian Anderson. He had to clean urinals, he put a urinal on stage for Tull's live shows, and urine was also the culprit that represented what Ian called the worst show that he ever played. It happened during a gig at New York's Shea Stadium in 1976. Ian was already concerned about jet planes from nearby LaGuardia Airport drowning out the band's music. He was about to start the show when he was suddenly drenched with a warm, sticky liquid that came from up above. Initially, he assumed it was beer, but he soon realized, with horror, that it was urine dumped from an airplane flying over the stadium. But as they say, the show must go on. Ian Anderson and Jethro Tull released their debut album titled This Was in 1968, followed by Stand Up in 69 and Benefit in 70. It was their fourth album, though, Aqualung, that has been acclaimed as Tull's seminal record. Of course, their best-selling it's moved over 7 million units. The lead single from Aqualung was Locomotive Breath, Ian Anderson's thought-provoking social commentary that he concocted into a labyrinth of classical music, jazz, and art rock. Locomotive Breath was conceived out of Ian Anderson's worry about overpopulation, actually. Anderson expressed how the song reflected the unstoppable nature of these ideas, pondering where this train of humanity was heading. He highlighted the drastic increase in the planet's population during his lifetime. Now, beyond its lyrical theme, the song features a recurring train motif. Of course, a theme Anderson has explored in many of his compositions. He attributed his fascination with train songs to their enduring presence in music history, particularly in blues genre. For Ian, who doesn't drive cars, public transport like trains have been an integral part of his life, shaping his experiences and influencing his songwriting. When Ian was born in 1947, the world's population was 2.3 billion. Now, by the time he penned Locomotive Breath, it had surged to 3.5 billion. For Ian, this drastic increase was a sobering realization that in his lifetime alone, the global population would more than triple. Now, while conventional wisdom suggested that such growth would bring prosperity, happiness, and ample resources, Ian saw the exact opposite happening. In his mind, the fear served as the central theme of Locomotive Breath, a metaphorical representation of the surging expansion of the Earth's population, unparalleled to an unstoppable locomotive. Locomotive Breath, it showcases Anderson's diverse songwriting skills, starting with a delicate bluesy piano intro by John Evan. It's almost inaudible at times before exploding into one of the most bombastic hard rock performances in Jethro Tull's extensive 5-decade history. Even after the first listen, one would guess that the shuffling madness of Locomotive Breath was an extremely difficult track to pull off, and it was. Ian labeled the early recording sessions as an utter failure. It just didn't gel. As hard as they tried, the band could not get into the groove. So Ian and the band, Barr, Hammond, Evan, and Bunker, scrapped the traditional approach, and they applied a rather unique method, especially for its time. Instead of recording the parts in unison, they were pieced together from overdubs. Now, Ian Anderson took on multiple roles. He performed his usual flute and vocal parts, along with handling the bass drum, hi-hat, acoustic guitar, and some electric guitar parts. Then John Evan recorded the piano parts, followed by Clive Bunker adding the remaining drums, and Martin Barr completing the electric guitar parts. These recordings were layered on top of each other through overdubbing, of course, as Anderson found it challenging to convey his musical vision for the song to the rest of the band members. Now, as we continue to break down the song, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the glasses I always wear. You know, the coolest frames right now at Zenni are their blue light glasses with multicolored lenses. I'm telling you, they're awesome. A first of its kind innovation. Blocks plus Tins technology blocks more blue light than ever, filtering digital screen glare and UV light with 8 different tinted lenses to choose from. Just click on our info button right up here to get yours today or below. So Ian Anderson imagined the musical arrangement of Locomotive Breath to mimic the click-clack rhythmic chugging of a train. So he pushed Martin Barr to attack the guitar strings to create that desired effect. Martin rose to the challenge during the recording session, strumming the guitar with such intense force, by the end of the finished version, his fingers were a bloody mess, bleeding all over the place. Every song that Ian Anderson has written is really a highbrow composition. It's just the way he's built. Whenever you listen to an interview with Ian, it doesn't take long for him to steer the conversation away from the usual fluff to a deep philosophical discussion, even if the interviewer has no idea what he's talking about. Locomotive Breath symbolizes the universal human experience. It is Ian's expression for every man, right? The song portrays a person being unavoidably driven towards their demise by the passage of time. Along the journey, they become disconnected from their loved ones and endure relentless suffering. Most dramatically in the second verse, where a man loses his children and finds his lover in bed with his best friend.
His woman and his best friend in bed and
the lyrics, though, then take a more abstract turn, suggesting a sense of existential emptiness. He hears the silence howling, catches angels as they fall, and the all-time winner. This suggests that an individual's life lacks purpose, and their only pursuit has been the pursuit of fleeting pleasures. Ultimately, the all-time winner hints at a fate of oblivion awaiting them, unaware of the true nature of their existence.
And the all-time winner has got him by the...
Delving even deeper into the cerebral lyrics of Locomotive Breath, according to Ian, the character Old Charlie in the song's chorus symbolizes God. When Ian mentions stealing the handle, it symbolizes allowing the train to run uncontrollably, reflecting the sensation of confronting life's injustices and feeling powerless to evoke change. It portrays the struggle of dealing with a hopeless situation as effectively as humanly possible. In addition to his prowess as a flutist, Ian Anderson distinguished himself from other frontmen by his animated stage theatrics. Ian would stand up and jump around on one leg when he played the flute in concert. He, of course, became famous for his one-legged choreography, the one journalist described as a deranged flamingo. mean, it's truly an amazing thing to watch. Ian's stance became, of course, a staple of Jethro Tull's live shows and was included in many of the band's album covers. Ian perpetuated the unorthodox style after a reporter wrote incorrectly that Ian was standing on one leg when he was playing the flute at one of Tull's gigs at the Marquee Club. Ian was actually standing on one leg when he was playing the harmonica and holding the microphone stand, just for some balance. Ian exaggerated the one-legged stance from that point forward. It's kind of a goof on the erroneous review. But he soon found that the audience really took to it. They loved it. It became a trademark of the Jethro Tull concerts. As captivating as Ian's one-legged performances were, they ultimately took a big toll on his body, especially his right leg. That bore most of the weight. Ian suffered knee damage in the 70s due to his vigorous onstage stomping, leading to repeated strain on his joints. In March of '96, Ian suffered a fall during a performance, injuring his knee and forcing him to complete the North American Jethro Tull tour in a wheelchair. A few months later, his condition further deteriorated. He was hospitalized and diagnosed with deep vein thrombosis. It was so serious that Ian could have died. In 2020, Ian revealed that he has COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. But the man keeps on rocking. Jethro Tull had a full U.S. tour in 2023 and is planning to do shows in 4 different countries in 24 and 25. Locomotive Breath has also found popularity among metal bands. Covers by Wasp on their 1989 album The Headless Children, Halloween on their 1999 release Metal Jukebox, and Styx featured it on their 2005 album Big Bang Theory. Now, I have to admit, when I was a kid, a little kid, and I saw my dad's cover of Aqualung, it scared the hell out of me. I think it was partly because I was kind of a sheltered kid, growing up in the small town in Idaho. The figure on the cover looked like a human monster to me. But as I got older, even though it was extremely menacing, I came to appreciate it. And now I regard it as one of the coolest album covers of the rock era. The original cover art for the Aqualung album was designed by Burton Silverman in 1971. Terry Ellis, co-founder of Chrysalis Records, struck a deal with Silverman for the album artwork, paying him a flat fee of about $1,500. The agreement was sealed with nothing more than just a handshake, lacking any written contract or clarity on future use, which would later prove to be a source of regret for Silverman, because he received nothing in perpetuity. He lost a possible fortune because of it. The concept for the cover, it actually stemmed from a photograph taken by Ian's wife, capturing a homeless man on Thames Embankment. Ian Anderson later regretted not using the photograph for the cover instead of commissioning the painting, is what he would say. While Ian recalls posing for a photograph for the painting, Silverman contends that it was a self-portrait. Aqualung, with its provocative cover, was the biggest of Jethro Tull's 23 studio albums, like I said. The title track, very powerful, Hume 43, that was another standout. But Locomotive Breath was another level of progressive rock. So much so that I don't want to pigeonhole it at all. Now, from a chart perspective, the song wasn't a hit. It stalled at number 85 in Canada, and it went to number 62 on the Billboard Hot 100 here. In the UK, it didn't even make the top 100 on the British singles chart. But you know what? It doesn't matter. Locomotive Breath is in a class by itself, defying categorization. As the song's creator, Locomotive Breath evolved into really an anthem for Ian Anderson. An anthem that he hoped would serve as a wake-up call to humanity. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about Jethro Tull and Locomotive Breath. What are your memories of the song? What are your memories of the album, of the band? Let's have a great discussion below to celebrate their great work. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth.